G'day. We're not far away from the start of the 2025 F1 season, so what can we expect when it comes to launches? Well, things kick off with the season launch at the O2 Arena in London, where all 10 of them, will be revealing their 2025 liveries. But just quickly, have a look at this. 46% of people viewing my videos aren't subscribers. If you're one of those 46%, could you please hit the subscribe button? It helps with the algorithm and it ensures you don't miss out on future videos. Getting back to the launch, these liveries will not be the final liveries. Why? Well, some teams will have extra sponsors still to come on board, and many will have sponsors that come on through the year. Perhaps not for the whole season, but for races here or there. Teams sell sponsorships to different races, to different companies. That aside, all teams, all drivers, all team principals are expected to be at that O2 event in front of normally the stadium seats about 20,000 spectators, but in this format, and have a look at it here, where you've got this big stage running down the centre, closer probably to 18,000 people. Very few media were invited, and this is the first time that all of these 20 drivers will be together in one group. Now, interestingly, will Sauber send Mattia Binotto or Jonathan Wheatley? Because Jonathan is the new team principal, but there's some doubt as to when he actually starts with the team. I'd be betting on Mattia Binotto for this. All the drivers excited about this? No, I don't think so. They would just view this as another night out of their free time. Perhaps the younger and newer drivers will enjoy it a bit more than the older and more experienced drivers. What did Max Verstappen have to say about it?
I hope I'm sick that week.
But don't doubt it's a popular event. It sold out in just 45 minutes back in November. Will it be broadcast live? Yes, I believe so, but still, at the time of recording this, no details are available. Now, will there be plenty of razzle-dazzle? Yes, because the people who organised the inaugural Las Vegas Grand Prix opening and closing ceremonies, Brian Burke Creative, have been tasked to run this show. Now, I imagine some of you thought the Vegas opening and closing ceremonies were pretty kitsch, but it certainly was colourful, and it certainly did have lots of sparkle to it. So I suspect that this show will be very similar. Of course, this is the 75th year of Formula One, and that's why they're having this F1 75 event. But I kind of think that this is going to be a regular commitment, and I know that a number of the teams are banking on already planning for the launch next year. So I think this will be a regular thing at the start of every season. What's the format of this night? Well, every team gets a mere 7 minutes to unveil their livery. Now, that could be a real car, and they bring it in and put it on that stage, or they could be using video. But I understand at F1 demanded of all teams that they're not to show their liveries prior to this date. Now, in a moment, I'll get to what other teams are doing prior to February 18. That's the launch date, and you'll see how they're managing to keep in with F1 and not break that rule. So 10 teams, 7 minutes each, that's 70 minutes. The show will run a couple of hours. In between, there will be the likes of interviews and musical acts. Perhaps we'll even see a teaser for the F1 movie, which is due out in late June. So who gets to go, and in particular, who sits in these tables around the stage? I understand that will be primarily teams and sponsors. So each team will get X number of tickets and they'll hand them out to some of their bigger sponsors, I imagine. Perhaps some of the girlfriends will be there. What are my predictions? Well, I think we can probably see Lily Znaimer, girlfriend of Oscar Piastri. She's British. Wouldn't be too much of a hike for her. Hannah St. John probably will roll up with Liam Lawson. I imagine George will bring Carmen. And Lily He, if she's not playing in a golf tournament, I would suspect she'll be along there as Alex's +1. Let's go back and look at what these tickets originally sold for when they were put on sale and sold out in 45 minutes. And I'll do them in US dollars for consistency. $62, $103 and $124 were the three price levels. But hang on, I had a look yesterday and these are in Australian dollars, but I'll run through them in US for you. Anywhere from 190, there's some standing at 232 US, and a good seat, or great seat, probably the best one here, 1,015 US dollars. The average, probably closer to $300 a pop. So that's a fair premium on what everybody paid for their ticket. Says to me that it is a highly sought after event. Let's go back to what teams are doing prior to the February 18 launch. Williams is doing a filming day and a promotional event at Silverstone. Is it Silverstone or Silverstone? That's an interesting point because I thought the Brits said Silverstone. I've been saying it that way, but have a look at this. This is what David Croft says in one of the DTS episodes.
Welcome to Silverstone.
And then a little bit later in that episode, he says this.
Here at Silverstone.
He's had an each-way bet. I'm going to say Silverstone. I hope that doesn't grate with you. Getting back to the Williams filming day, that car that they'll be using will be the FW47, and it will feature a bespoke one-off livery. This is something that will only be used in testing. Haas is also doing something, a filming day in the new car, February 16, once again at Silverstone. And like Williams, they too will not be using their 2025 livery. And how easy is it to do a bespoke livery? Not hard at all. Bit of computer design, some vinyl to cover the car, and then a whole lot of logos plastered around in the right spot. And still on the topic of Haas, I see Pete Crawler from Haas has snared the team manager role at Cadillac. Top bloke and heading to a brand new team. Be quite a challenge, I imagine. Good on you, Pete. Next up, action prior to the launch. I understand that Racing Bulls, VCarb, will be heading to Imola on the 17th for a private test in the new car. Not the new livery, though. Isaac Hadger and Yuki Tsunoda will be giving that car some stick around the Imola track, which is one of my favourites. Now, let's look at events after the season launch. Ferrari heads to Fiorano, where they did the test the other week with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. They'll be running the 2025 car livery because it's after the launch date, and I suspect that I'll be able to share some pictures of that event with you via social media and perhaps in an upcoming video. And at the time of recording this, two other teams have confirmed that they'll be launching their cars. Mercedes on the 24th of February in Bahrain. I'll be there, but I think a lot of the media won't be there until the 24th or 25th and may miss that because they would have been thinking, right, well, let's just get there just in time for testing, which kicks off on the 26th. So Mercedes launches on the 24th, but on the 25th, the following day, at the Bahrain track, they'll be doing a filming day, and the FIA regulations permit 200 kilometres of on-track activity during promotional events. And in the Middle East there, at that track, they can probably get around 36 laps of the circuit. And that'll be George and Kimi. And why Bahrain? Well, as Toto Wolff says, it always rains in Silverstone. So we decided that we don't want to stand in the freezing rain again. Oh, and I've just received an email, which is good because it's just in time for me to share this with you. Aston Martin will be releasing their car livery digitally on the 23rd of February from Bahrain. On the 24th, Fernando and Lance will be taking that car around the Bahrain circuit for a promotional day, probably on the same terms and conditions as Mercedes the following day. That still leaves these teams still to advise on when they'll be launching their car. As those dates become available, I'll update the description so that you guys are in the know. Between the major launch at the O2 Stadium on February 18 and the season start at Bahrain for testing, what do the drivers get up to? Well, there'll be plenty of meetings. There'll be simulator work at their headquarters at the factory. I see Carlos was at Williams the other day having a little meet and greet with the crew. Even answered some questions about his hair.
How many times you shampoo per day?
As well, there'll be sponsor events and plenty of hard work in the gym. Of course, the drivers have KPIs that they need to meet, the likes of weight, body fat, strength, cardio, etc. And this is the time that they put in the hard yards. Come the major part of the season, there's not that much work going on in terms of fitness, just top up stuff. And of course, they're in the car, and that's where most of the major strengthening of the neck takes place. So that's a bit of a wrap on what happens before the season gets underway in Melbourne, or as the US people would say, Melbourne. It's definitely pronounced Melbourne. So let's have a look at the schedule for this year. Starts off markedly different to last year with Australia first. Great news for me, and that's because of Ramadan's timing. Don't doubt that there will be a huge audience tuning in to see that first race live from Melbourne. And driver portraits are back this year. We've missed it every time in Bahrain. For some reason, they didn't run the opportunity to shoot all 20 drivers at the track on the first day, but that will be happening on the Thursday in Melbourne. All drivers coming to stand in front of a black backdrop so that all the photographers can get their snaps. Oh, and there'll be a drivers group shot which will take place on the track and just before the drivers take off on their drivers parade on race day. This was last year's start of season picture, and here's the end of season picture. Plenty of changes. I find myself wondering how many of the 2025 drivers who start the year will actually make it to the end. Let's talk about race start times. A little bit different this year. 3 races. Canada is starting 2 hours earlier. Qatar, 1 hour earlier, but the sun sets at 4:43 p.m. there, so that won't matter much at all to the look of the race. And Vegas starts 2 hours earlier, which means that they'll all be arriving into the paddock in daylight, which is great because that paddock is exceptionally dark and hard to photograph in. And of course, the casinos will be a lot happier as it gets all those people away from the track probably by midnight, and hopefully for them into their casinos. Now, thank you to you if you were one of those people who subscribed when I asked at the start of the video. If you've left it till the end, now's your time to hit that subscribe button. Like the video too, please. And for a whole lot of extra content, head over here and have a look. And if you're looking for a little bit more F1, become a member of the channel. Thanks for watching and stay passionate. Thanks for watching. What is it? Thanks for watching.